Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a computer programming instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to check a Unity project into Visual Studio Online source control. So I've created a little project here for me to check in. And the first thing I'm going to do is set my preferences. So let's see. In external tools, I want, instead of Mono Develop, I'm going to use Visual Studio 2015. And I've already loaded Visual Studio tools for Unity, which you can get on the Microsoft website. And you'll want to load whatever tools are appropriate for your version of Visual Studio. Once you have that, you'll need to go to Assets, Import Package, and if you're using Unity 5.1 or earlier like I do, you'll have to import the Visual Studio 2015 tools. If it's later than if it's 5.2 or later, you'll already have this already integrated into Unity. And just to test this out, I've got a little script I'm going to open up and see if it opens up Visual Studio. And it looks like it did in fact open up our project. So let me see if this opens up nicely. And there we have our little test script. And I know that it's working adequately. And we'll assume that you already have a Visual Studio Online account, that you've created a project, and now it's just a matter of configuring our game so that we can use it for source control. And what that requires is making a few changes to our editor. So we'll go to Edit, Project Settings, and Editor. And in order for it to work well with version control, we're going to make the meta files visible, and we're going to force text for asset serialization. This tends to work better for Unity projects. So once we have our project configured for source control, the next step is in source control, we need to add solution to source control. And I think before I do that, I'm going to look at my team settings, make sure I'm connected. And I'm going to place it here on this game dev course directory. So going back to my solution, I'm going to right click on it and add solution to source control. We're going to pick Team Foundation version control. I'm going to pick the game dev course, and then click OK. we now have our project in source control. However, if you look at what you have currently associated with it, it's just the assets folder with the scripts. And we need to add some more items. So to complete adding the assets folder, right click on assets and add items to folder. So right click on the assets folder and click add items to folder. And you'll have a number of items show up in the assets folder. I'm just going to select all of them and click next. And then that will identify all the files that are going to be added to source control. I'm going to click finish. And now we should have everything that we need, including the meta files. These would generally be recreated, I think, by Unity, but I just found it works easier, it seems, just to include them. And then once I've done that, I'm going to right click on the Unity top level folder here and add items to folder. So I have the assets folder in there already. I also need the project settings folder. So I'm going to just select that one and click next. And click finish. So inside of my project for this one, which is just this one here, these are other projects in my game dev course repository, I have assets and project settings. And you'll notice all the green pluses, which mean these are ready to be checked in. And we're just going to right click on the solution and check in. I'm going to put a comment in, like initial check-in, so that it's easy to figure out what's going on in the history. And when I click check in, it'll check in all of those items. This can take a little bit, so I'm just going to pause. So it took a while, but finally got this change set checked in. And it took a while because I imported Unity's first-person platform stuff under the assets folder, which is possibly a good reason to consider using your own scripts and make your own prefabs. But we've got this checked in now, and the next step really is I've got it in this demo file, and what I want to do is I want to validate that this actually saved to source control. So I'm going to close out Visual Studio and Unity, and just to back it up, I'm going to send this to be zipped. And so this way I have this zip file that's a backup of that project. And I'm going to delete the original. So now we've got our project deleted. It's not in version control, and we'll see what we get down from version control when we try to bring it from VSO. And if I go to my source control, go to my game dev course, find that project, which was this first-person platformer demo, and I'm going to right click on it here in the Source Control Explorer. And I kind of want to do it, well, you'll have to do it from here because you don't have it yet. And if you're used to hitting the .sln file to load a project, you don't want to do that with this Unity project, because that will only load, bring down a part of the project. And with Unity especially, you're kind of using Visual Studio in two modes. One, you're using it for source control, and then you're also using it as your IDE. So you kind of want to separate in your mind what you're doing between those two different aspects. So if I'm working with a script, it's not necessarily linked up as well to source control as it is if I'm working on a native or a Microsoft Visual Studio project. So I'm just going to right click on the project here and get latest version. And this will do a get and download everything. Remember, we removed it from the directory, so we're downloading. The only things we're going to get from this are what's on the server. But this is one way for us to validate that we actually have on the server what we think we should have. If you have a complex project, this is a good time to read different books, check your mail, spend some time on the elliptical. I highly recommend reading this one, 3D Math Primer for Graphics and Game Development. We've downloaded what we have, and you would think that you would go to the solution, but realize you didn't open up a solution. What you did is you right-clicked in Source Control and downloaded a project in Source Control. So you don't want to open it up using the SLN file. What you want to do is go to the project, and you can click on it here in the local path, open up assets, and then the easiest way to open up a Unity project is to open up the scene. So we see that we have the scene was downloaded, and this should open up. One thing to note, if you have multiple people working on a Unity project, the scenes don't often do version control extremely well. So if you have two people working on a scene, they both make changes and they both upload them to the server, one will probably knock out the other. What I recommend is everyone works on their own version of the scene. You have one that's owned by the level designer, and people make copies of that, put their name on it, and put the assets they want the level designer to incorporate into that scene. And really, those probably should be saved off as prefabs, and you would have your level designer pull those prefabs from the source control folders that they're in and put them into the master scene. People can play that scene, but you don't want them to be putting up versions on that scene. And if you're the level designer for that scene, you probably should be fairly ruthless in maintaining control of the scene that you're in charge of. And let's see, the real test is, does this work? And this is an Oculus project, so I have to move the Oculus around. But yeah, it appears it worked. Oh no. I seem to have fallen, and I don't know where my platforms are. Okay, in any case, it works despite the horrible tragic end in the game, and we can see that works for uploading version control. And if you look, our assets are all there, and so that's good. And that completes my demonstration of how to put Unity into Visual Studio Online. Thank you very much.